Hey guys, you're getting ready to see episode 3 with my good friend Randy LaJoie. Talks about seats, we talk about the old days, sprint car racing, all kind of things. Let me know what you think of this. We're gonna try to do like a weekly safety update with him. Some things to try to do to make your car safer. Just different little things that I think he can bring value to you guys on. But this is just an intro. Hey, I want to thank everybody that's been coming in the shop. It's been craziness. Multiple cars going, multiple clips. There's a clip right there. And there's a new car right there. Check it out. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me who you want to see. Tell me what we need to do. Thank you. You guys mean the world to me. Thanks. Episode 3, The Grind. A legend. A guy that I've known a long time. Actually, when I first kind of got into was the Busch Series, I guess Xfinity now or whatever, Randy LaJoie. You may know him. He builds seats and does a lot of cool things for the safety side of the sport. So I want to start kind of trying to get some of these guys that I think have tons of information that can really benefit, and I want them to, get to you. I want you to be able to get to them. I want you to call them and ask them, Randy, what do I need to do? I'm mounting a new seat. How do I mount the seat? What do you think? What do you think the best way to do this is? And he can point you in the direction of what he has for options. And I think that's a win. So without further ado, legendary race car driver, seat builder himself. Guys put a lot of heart and soul into this seat company. I actually met him before I came here in the World of Outlaw days, years and years before, when I was still young. And that was go like after
20 years ago?
Yeah,
25
probably.
years ago?
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
That's a long time.
It goes quickly.
How's business? Things are good?
Well, it's typical summertime.
Yeah.
Where once the engines start, racers don't want to have nothing to do with changing anything in their car unless they have to.
Sure.
But it's you got to go plant seeds.
Is that your biggest problem? Would you say your biggest business problem is that in the summertime
we're dead,
right? And then in the fall, everything starts probably
Trade
from up
shows.
north, right? And
Yep.
then it just works its way down to where it's just pandemonium, where there's scrap laying everywhere and people mad.
And because you can't turn the product
100%, right? Like I can't either. I can't build them fast enough.
It's nuts. And I've gone to. Okay, I went to Nebraska for the I-80 Nationals.
Sure.
Perfect example. I go out there. Ricky Weiss is a decent late model guy.
Yeah.
The Bloomquist guy, and he's a winner. So I get him sized up at the I-80 Nationals, which is a year ago. And I said, okay, we built him a seat. He goes, I want 2. He goes, I'll probably get 3. He says, but I want 1, and I want to try it. I said, okay. So I built it for him right away. Turn it, get it to him. Well, he don't say nothing. He sees me at the PRI. He goes, yeah, I used that seat at St. Louis, the indoor race. He goes, yeah, it worked good. And he goes, okay, I need another 2. And I was like, okay.
No problem. Right.
Now you're getting on the list.
No problem.
And I got 100 on the list now.
Right.
So, okay, you're 102 and 103.
Right.
And he gets mad.
Right.
Well, I was like, why didn't you tell me, in August,
Yeah.
September? So that's difficult. Racers.
Have you seen it start to
been there, done
change?
that.
I can say my side has started to change. Like I now, my bigger teams, they're ordering cars now, knowing that they're going
correct.
to be under a jam, right? So my bigger teams are already putting in their orders to get cars built, and my littler teams are falling further behind because they haven't thought about it yet. And I don't mean that in a bad.
No,
I want to
mean,
bring perspective to them and get them to think about a seat now, right?
The,
Like
the
when
old
you're set.
adage, the longer you got, the longer it takes.
Right, that's it.
Right. And that's just so, I guess in anything. And until
Terrible.
you put a list and cross off the list, the boom, 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 this is I was an old race car driver.
Right.
And now I'm
Fairly
22
decent one.
years.
Fairly decent one.
Always lost more than you win.
Right.
But, being a crash test dummy,
Listen.
I learned a lot of things of what not to do with your safety equipment. Because there's not just one thing.
Right.
It's a whole system. And once Earnhardt passed, and NASCAR spent all that money to find out why.
Yep.
It's sad that 5 guys had to pass in front of him.
Yes.
and they didn't do nothing because that man would still be here if they would have just had a couple things in his system that would have been better. But nowadays, okay, that was
Sometimes,
2001.
right? The Phoenix
Race-
rise from the ashes, right? Like, isn't that
That's
the
right.
way it's supposed to work?
That's
so
right.
I understand. I don't think anybody saw that coming. We didn't want it to happen, right? But that's
nobody wants
right?
something, yeah.
Right,
But
but now-
it's almost like you almost sacrifice one.
I agree.
Because
I
why
agree.
did we kill 5 or 6 before Dale,
Right.
but we haven't done none after?
You-
So it was awesome,
And
a
you'd be
wonderful sport.
You'd
for
be a
that.
guy that would be able to talk on this from both perspectives, because I see the two biggest things that seems to be 3 areas of expertise that my racers need. They need setup help.
Okay.
They always need driver tips, which you fall into that category, and they always need to work on their safety things. And those are 3 constantly evolving tasks. And I think that's one thing that you kind of can triple thread onto people. And I was telling him before that I want everybody to know him. When I was a young man racing, guys like this were very influential upon my career because they knew how to race. And we didn't have the internet. We didn't have 10,000 people that would make videos or could do anything else, right? I had to learn from people like him or from mentorship, and I think some of that's going away, and I want to try to bridge that gap. I want to try to get people, how do you have a guy that's sled tested, that's drove as a sled test dummy,
Yeah, that's right.
that's win a couple Xfinity championships, that's done all these things, and we're just allocating him to, I need a 36-inch seat.
Yeah.
Right. And I
that's
think
right.
I think that's so undervalued, and that's some of what I want to do. I think so many people, especially the younger generation of this group, right? Because I'm kind of maybe in the middle. They don't even understand.
No, and it's not their fault.
No, but
they
that's
don't know
why-
what they don't know.
Right. That's why I got to
Yeah.
get you on a camera where
Yeah, well,
10,000
it's
people
okay.
can see it, to
Uh-huh.
where they can understand that. Man, there's a lot. If you don't think you're lost and you got to give up. Everybody thinks that this is a money-only game. Now, I'm going to say this on the record. I will say it. I think that money plays a huge factor in the game.
In
Factor
anything.
in the game.
In
right?
anything.
Right.
Yes.
Money
Always has.
Money makes things easier. That's
Yep.
my grandpa used to say that quite a bit. Money makes things easier, and it doesn't change anything. It just makes it easier. And I think that some of the guys that don't have amplitudes of money need to start reaching out to guys like you that,
For information.
Right.
That's right.
And because it's
sometimes
not,
they don't
what's
cost
gonna-
a whole lot
right.
to fix stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest misconception about my place. And I've said it multiple times. I probably save people more money from doing things that are bad
That's right.
than I do anything else.
Being around the sport, my dad was a Hall of Fame racer, and being around the sport, I've seen a lot of things that we shouldn't do.
100%.
And that's what you're like, wow, why would you do that?
And
I mean, especially this day and age when, like I said, it's 2001, the world knew
Right.
why Dale
What
Earnhardt
happened.
died.
Right. That's right.
And here it is, 2019, and I go to 15 racetracks a year, and there's still guys with 1985 systems in the car.
Right.
And they get mad at me when I try to say, hey, guys, there are better options.
Right.
Because this is always going to be dangerous. I mean, when you climb in a window, it's sort of like playing Russian roulette.
That's right.
You don't never know you're going to climb out.
Right.
I guess that's one of the part of doing it, because, man, that's a pretty good adrenaline rush when you
still
climb
feel
in.
it. You told me on the way in, right? You still feel it.
I
Right?
still
It
do.
lives forever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I take a shower and,
Right.
and shut my eyes and turn my head down, I still get flashbacks of buckshot wrecking me in New Hampshire because I'm still damn dizzy.
That's awesome.
So it's like, okay, what do we do? But was there things in place that I could have done better back in 2001? Absolutely.
Sure.
Golly, yes. I mean, my dad said, he goes, I've never seen a car wrecked as bad as that. He goes, your seat was laying against the roll bars.
Right. Right.
And I thought I had a good seat.
right.
I mean, I was okay. I mean, it's a seat that I built for myself. I didn't want to hurt me. And,
I remember, I don't even remember. I think it was Oskaloosa, Iowa or somewhere. I was out at a race, and I think that was one of the places that I first met you, Knoxville or Oskaloosa, Iowa
Yep,
or something
yep.
like that, right? And you walked up, and we started conversing, and you're like, you crew chief this deal? And I said, yes, sir. I was like 19 or something.
Yep.
I said, yes, sir. He's like, you don't care about this kid much, do you? And now I want you to know that this kid was Darren Pittman, who was my best friend in the world at this time, right? Like, and for Randy to say it to me like that kind of changed my whole perspective on how the game worked, because it was true. I was worrying about that world is all about weight and
Correct.
all about,
Racing stuff. Yeah,
right.
right.
There's I like to say that sprint car guys, and I know that world is changing, so I don't want to talk about something I'm 15 or 20 removed from, but sprint car guys in the old days didn't fabricate much stuff themselves. We whittled,
Still don't.
We whittled on things.
Yeah, correct.
We whittled on everything. There was
Yes.
not a piece that we did not whittle on, but we didn't build anything. So we just tried to make things better all the time and lighter, and our way of testing things that were lighter was we take them until they break,
That's
and
right.
then we go again, right? Like, so not the best ideas, but
That's what racers
that's
do.
what we do.
Yeah.
So for that reason is why I believe, why you have so much information, because you've broken hundreds of things, right?
Like, safety is a moving target, but if it happens once, it can happen again.
Right.
So that's what I've done my whole career with my seats. Is if I bent my seat before I built my testing unit, if I bent the seat, okay, I got to make that stronger.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and there's too many times, back in the tire war days, I blew a couple right fronts and crashed.
Right.
And I could have swore, Charlotte, my knee, I hurt my knee, had to have an operation on it. I had a chip in my kneecap. And it was the head of a bolt. It was a hex head bolt that broke my kneecap. Oh. Well, when I sat back in the car to figure out what it hit, it was 14 inches away. The bolt was from my knee.
That was how much movement.
And it hit it.
Right.
And I said, how can that happen?
Right.
Well, then I later, when I start doing all these sled tests, the body is 60% fluid, so we're containing Jello.
Right.
And the belts, the newer belts, not the nylon, the old nylon belts, hell, they stretch
For a mile.
Yes.
Right.
Well, now
Right.
the newer ones, the poly, and
Right.
they're a lot better, but they still stretch.
Right.
So you put the belt stretch with 60% fluid, golly, and a 30-mile-an-hour impact, I couldn't believe how far the body moved.
Sure.
And I was there, and I was watching this, and I was like, God, it never makes sense how my knee hit something 14
Right.
inches
Stretch it
away.
far.
And okay, so we have to fix that. The belts have to be mounted better. And that's what as a chassis builder. You guys are putting the mounts for the seat belts. Well, put them where the seatbelt manufacturer wants them.
Right.
And you've done that.
Yeah.
I
We
mean,
had them come in. Yeah, for sure.
So guys don't do that.
Right.
And I get so mad because I was like, just if you're welding a tab in, just weld it where it's supposed to be.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
not
For a
where you've
reason.
always had it.
Right.
So it's an ever evolving. NASCAR, first thing they did to protect the driver, they made the cars bigger. They added a bar here,
Right.
so for intrusions.
Right.
So, okay, this is not a bad thing. Well, short track guys, dirt late model guys, dirt modified guys. Wow, been doing seats now for 22 years. And I've been pushing those guys to get bigger cars.
Right.
Guys, because short track guys, they're not jockeys like the NASCAR boys.
Right.
I got
Right.
my son Corey's probably the biggest guy out there.
Agreed. Yes.
He's 190 pounds,
Right.
6'2", but everybody else is 150 pounds.
Right.
And so you're like, okay, you're not a lot of mass there. Well, you go short track racing, there's some mass.
Right. There's big dudes.
Yes, there
Right.
are. I mean, I was out in Kansas last year, and I met Jason Walla. He's a IMCA late modified guy doing that Dirt Nights tour, and he loved the seat. And I had one that fit him perfect. It's same size as Rambo Franklin,
Yeah.
South
Yeah.
Carolina's Rambo, and that's my extra large seat. And I was like, there's guys out there that big.
Yeah.
I mean, Rambo's 320.
Right.
This
What-
Walla was 340.
How much extra, right? Like, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, right? Like, how much extra go into that?
I put stronger tubing.
Have to, right?
Just because you have so much more mass going against the
Sure.
seat. I mean, all my seats I test and I push on them because in NASCAR we have to meet a criteria. We push at three places. We push on the head, we push on the shoulder, and we push on the hip. Well, NASCAR is 2,000 pounds on the head, 3,000 on the shoulder, and 4,000 on the hip. A 90-degree push,
Right.
which is equal to a 100G hit, which they've seen. They've seen over 100G hits.
I remember that one at Michael at Kentucky, I think, when he blew that tire,
yeah,
right?
Correct.
That was like
terrible. I mean, they've had a
scrambled
couple
eggs.
of them.
Yeah,
And So we're only allowed a half inch of deflection, and it has to come back within a quarter of an inch of where it started. No problem. I mean, it's not easy.
Right.
But okay, so when I started doing this, why would Saturday night guy's life be different than a Sunday?
100%.
So I was like, why? I mean, why would I build a seat for somebody that I don't build for me?
Right.
That didn't make sense. Well, the first 2 or 3 years doing it, going out to the trade shows, and then Steve Kirky, Canadian guy, who a human that's government subsidized, all his machines.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, he's got 3 houses all across the world. I was like, golly. Okay, well, a human doesn't touch his seats.
Oh, all machine welded.
All machine.
See, that's where I think some of this disconnect is going to come, because I truly believe that I'm just a goofball and I study statistics, but I truly believe that I could show you like all 52%, I think, as of yesterday, of the all online sales are based through Amazon, one entity. So I think that sales are going to go that way. The problem is going to be this.
They're not getting a racing seat on from Amazon. I don't believe.
They don't know you.
No, yeah, correct.
That's where you win. Because I don't think you can compete with the price for them. I will tell you, I will stand up and say that Roger Johnson cannot compete, Performance Center cannot compete on a scale. If you were looking for cheap, I'm not your guy.
Correct.
Right?
I mean,
I'll openly say that. I'm not your guy. Yeah. If you're looking for something that is probably going to be overly safe, I'm your guy. I'm your guy.
Yep.
I probably put things and have had enough drivers that I've been close enough to that I've seen enough bad stuff hit at 100 Gs. Yes. Or, you start to look at perception is completely different than Hickory Motor Speedway, And
you can wreck hard at Hickory.
Oh,
one of the hardest wrecks I've ever had was the 3rd mile oval up in Oxford, Maine. I was one of the hardest wrecks. And you're like, the heck, I was only going 75. What's
the biggest thing you see that people do wrong from a safety standpoint? Not picking on them, but what's the biggest thing if you could tell somebody the biggest thing you see, right? Like, was it little things they do? Like, things are just mounted cheaply over.
Well, like we said earlier, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
In the next week, if you have a good seat, you got to mount it correctly.
Right.
You can't have a 90-thou piece of aluminum holding in a 200-pound guy.
And that's what we're going to do in the coming weeks. He doesn't know it, but I'm going to suck him into coming back up here, hopefully when it's not 4,000 degrees. And I want him, we're going to do a couple more videos of ways to mount these things. I want people to understand that this racing community, how this has worked in my opinion, for years and years is us younger guys take the older guys and we ask them questions and they teach us how things worked. So let's try that. I promise you that he has seen more seats in 22 years. I'm just going to use only the joy of seating time, but has seen more seats in 22 years as an individual than I would say most other people in the country. Why would you not want to ask him that question?
What do you think?
Right.
And you would be surprised.
And I don't care, and I don't think he does. I don't care if you don't have it, because if something happens to you because you didn't ask somebody, it's now on you.
That's right.
Right? Like, I just want you to know that there's options, because what I learned is I have an infrastructure of guys that I call Randy, and I'm like, hey, man, what do you think about this? Or most of the time, he just gives me his opinion. I don't get to ask him for it. He just tells me what it
happens.
Yeah. Right? So I want people to know that they can reach out, figure out better ways to mount belts, figure out better ways to mount seats, figure out, safety things. The guy has all the information for a lot of the NASCAR stuff. Why not reach out to him and get him to answer some of your questions?
Racers are usually very vocal.
Yeah.
But there's certain things, safety-wise, they just clam up.
Right.
I mean, it's simply amazing. I'm in a big push. I contact a lot of racetracks now.
Uh-huh.
There's a handful of racetracks in the country that if you don't have a head and neck restraint and you don't have a containment seat,
right,
they don't want your $30. Right. Go home. Don't play here.
Right.
Because it's a whole lot cheaper than putting on a funeral for the people.
100%.
So
It's my biggest fear in the world.
it's
I will tell
crazy.
you, people. I don't think people like you too, probably, right? Like
Drivers.
I don't think people understand that that's a load.
Oh.
Like I view it completely different than many. I would
wouldn't-
never want.
I wouldn't be able to sleep if I was a
Right.
racetrack owner, because I think I would be able to sleep if you said, "Okay, guys, I don't want you to play at my racetrack. If you're not contained with a
Right.
good seat and a head and neck restraint, I mean, a good seat could be a $150 bottom part
Yeah.
with a bolt-on kit.
Right.
Now
There's
you got a
lot of
containment
options.
seat.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, every seat manufacturer has a bolt-on kit for a non-containment seat to turn it into containment. And I'm pushing the racetracks to race car drivers will drive naked with no seat, with the balls friggin'
We watched them do it.
sparking on the ground, and come in and say, the motor's skipping, but how fast did I go?
Right.
That was cool.
What was my number?
Yeah. So, okay, we have to protect the driver from themselves, because everybody knows better now,
Right.
About why people get hurt. But there's still, you would think, I just heard this about a month ago from a lawyer type at a racetrack.
Sure.
You know, because they talk a little different.
Right,
Lawyers talk
100%.
way different.
Man, I actually just said that on Facebook. I have a customer that's an attorney,
Okay.
and I posted something about a start and park or something, and he gave me 12 pages of legal jargon that he and the 5 people he graduated law school with, and my sister probably, were the only ones that knew what he meant.
Yeah, so it's a whole different language. But during that language, they're like, well, you know, they're going to start going after the racetracks for neglecting, because the racetracks know.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody gets hurt and you didn't have a head and neck restraint and you had a basal neck,
You
you know, okay, that head and neck restraint would have probably saved that basal neck.
would have been the difference.
Yeah. So yeah, I hate to get into lawyer talk, but golly, guys, let's.
Well, we just got to protect, I think, we have to protect racers from themselves, right?
Yes.
We're both kind of fighting the same fight.
Yeah. And the parents, when the kids.
You still do that? You used to
I
have
still
that
got a program. Still got
Man.
that kid program.
Tell them about that quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but this thing has value for days. And I'm going to
Okay.
tell you, I have some friends that went through the program. I believe Mike Moeller, that little Andrew Moeller kid, from the time he was very young,
That's
was
right.
in a seat and then continued all the way with it. He's now winning big NASCAR modified races up
Yes.
north.
Yes.
He's doing good.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, one of the Spencer Clark, Las Vegas boy, got him when he was in bandos.
Sure.
Went to Legends.
Yep.
Legends to late models. Late models to K&N. Come east, bought a car, driving home, got killed. Driving back there with a brand new car, got killed in a highway accident. So I've named my child development program Spencer Clark Development, because he went through the ranks. And what I did with him and his dad, two things happened. One, I was at a trade show in Kirky, said, hey, do you do anything with kids' seats? And I was like, well, not necessarily. I just built one for Corey, who was like 11, so I had to take one of my big ones and make it smaller. And I was like, he's 115 pounds, always going to be a 115-pound
Right.
kid.
That's it.
So I said, okay, I'm going to make this stamp. So I invested into making a stamp for a 115-pound kid. Had one for a 160-pound guy, but not for a kid. Well, I said, okay, we're going to start there. And then the end of the year, I had to change that seat 3 times for him because he grew so much. Well, then you have to buy shoes and fire suits. And it's like, wow, this does I can see where it gets expensive.
where
You
it
have to
gets
buy
too
a
much.
seat.
Sure.
Well, and then I'm at one of the things that when you're a NASCAR guy, you get some certain perks.
Sure.
Well, we get to play golf with the seniors. And I'm playing with Tom Kite. And I always thought this guy was a stick in the mud. Big, thick glasses. And,
Right.
But he was a wonderful man. Well, he did some homework on me.
Yeah.
And we got talking. He's talking about the kids. And I said, hey, and I told him how I build the seats. In the beginning of the summer, Corey was this big. The end of the summer, he was that big. He goes, golf companies, he said, they kind of leash you to clubs. Because there's always somebody 3'2", and there's always
Right.
somebody 3'8".
Yeah.
He says, so, just instead of changing that seat out, just kind of keep them in rotation. And I was having trouble. I was trying to help the parents, and probably wasn't charging them enough for the seat.
Sure.
Well, and then the kid get burned out, and he don't want to race no more.
Right.
Where's that seat now?
Right.
I got a $700 investment somewhere.
Right. Somewhere.
Yeah,
Right.
somebody just got a hell of a deal.
Sure.
So I said, okay. So I wasn't charging for the program, so I said, okay, here's what I'm going to charge, at least so I can get my aluminum covered.
Yes.
But I give the guys 3 seats. It's a $9.95 buy-in. and I'll adjust that seat twice. You send it to me, I'll adjust it, no cost.
That's awesome.
Because it's not the parents' fault that the kid grows.
Right.
You know, I mean, some guys eat
wait a minute.
double cheeseburgers.
And I want to give people perspective, maybe that just don't know you. Now, his son, okay, he's been through this game. So we're not only talking about he's been through this game as a driver, as a business owner, as a consultant, as a spotter, I can't even remember how many hats I've seen him wear around the NASCAR garage.
Just a few,
right? Like so, So it's not like this is bull because he just did this with his kid. Like if you turn the TV on Sunday, you see his kid. So it's not people out here running the mouth. The program was based by a dad that had a kid that saw a need, that holy cow, a normal dad, right?
And also Steve Kirky says, why don't you do kid seats?
There you
I was
go.
like, why? He goes, well, they need a new one every 3 months.
Right.
And I was like, well, I guess you don't have kids. He said, no. I said, okay. You know,
Right.
yeah, they do need a seat every 3 months in their growing spurts.
Right.
Why do they got to buy a $500 seat every time?
Right.
You know, a good seat. You can buy one for $200, but it's probably not that good.
That's not what you're at.
And then, so hopefully when I get the kids early, they really get to liking it. But what I've seen is racers, there's a whole lot less with loyalty
Yes.
than without. They would jump at a Kyle Larson was in my stuff growing up.
Right. I don't think people...
Christopher Bell was
Right.
in my stuff growing up. And then they get up, and then somebody gives them a seat. And then Christopher says, Randy, yours was the best seats I ever had. I was like, well, why don't you run them now? So,
Yes.
it's drivers are always drivers.
Right. I think where you, and if you look at where you're thriving now, I think that your brand has always been a brand that people, I mean, like, at what other company for 22 years have you been able to get in touch with the guy that owns the joint?
Correct.
That's my question. Right?
I got an open door.
Here, I got a problem.
Yeah. Yep.
Who do I call when I call other places?
Yep.
At least kind of with your gig, I call down there. I know I'm one click away from getting you. If I do have some kind of emergency that I need to work on, what's the best way that you find for people to get a hold of you? Like, I think people don't know how to measure their kids for seats, right? Like, I think that's a problem. I think because then it's so hard, right? Because you're a national company, you sell all over the country, but the problem is it's very hard through conglomerations like the PRI show and other things where you get to measure 200 people, and you can do it the right way, but it's also hard to do. Like, what advice do you give to a parent since you have this program that, by the way, you got to check out? Go on their website. We'll put some links for their social media and how to contact them. Like right up here is kind of usually where I stick it. Like I stash it. It's not there right now, but it'll be there later. And then we'll go from there and try to get you guys in contact with them. But what's your biggest piece of advice for those? Because when my son started racing little cars, there's so many options, right? That I didn't know. There's poured inserts,
Correct.
There's seats, there's so many things. What do you give a parent that's new? Let's say they're a quarter midget kid going into that they haven't really run a seat, because that's not as prevalent in quarter midget racing, which I hated, but my kid was in one. That's beside the point. But as they go to Legends and on up,
just protect them.
Right.
And a lot of times when
parents
you
don't
buy
know.
a car,
We see, that's the
because they
problem.
buy
We
a
forget.
car,
Right.
and it was good enough for that guy.
Right.
It was good enough for his kid. Do some homework. That's all. I mean, I
if
go.
nothing
I
else,
go to
tote
see
the
their
thing
moms.
down to you.
Yeah,
right?
anywhere.
Tote it down
Send
and
pictures.
Get in it. Right.
Yeah,
like whatever.
That's right. And it's amazing. I say race car drivers, 30% of them, the seats don't fit them, even close. Even close. And I was like, I said, that don't bother you?
Right.
Well, I was like, okay. I said, if you ever try to make it better,
Right.
This is what I would do.
Right.
And that's, I got on a couple competitors that went probably 5-8 years ago. They come out with a cheap line of seats. Why would you do that?
Right. At what point?
I was like, why? With all the information we know,
Right.
why would you downgrade your seats?
Yes.
And the guy did it just to make a nickel.
Right.
And that's wrong, to me.
But short term it wins, but long I think it loses.
Yeah, and I say half of that style seat that guy built I'd see guys in the car and they're like, Jesus, I said, that thing's not even close.
Right, but half of them
You know?
wadded up and are gone now because
Yeah,
they were
one
one
and
small
dones.
bump
Yeah.
away from you
Yeah.
had to throw them away because
Correct.
they were just
You buy 3
expendable.
junk
Right.
seats instead of one
Right.
good one. I mean, my seats are all guaranteed for life.
The most interesting part, I will tell you that I identify a lot with him is when I learned to fly, I started to use the same analogies, right? Like, man, all right, I'm going to be up in this airplane. Do I want the cheaper oil that's $2 less, right? Or do this other stuff rates way better? I think I'll spend the extra $16, right? Because that's it, right? It's not like you can go back when you're about to hit something and be like, man, I wish I would have put these tabs in a different
You don't need
place.
it till you
Right,
need it.
right?
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate. Mikey. We get Mikey in on every video, one way or the other.
Okay.
We're turn the fan on. We're gonna throw this thing off, and turn it on. We're gonna throw this thing off. We're gonna get Randy back in here in a couple weeks. Get him to do a few more segments of how to do seats, how to do whatever, and we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.